So ultimately, I think what was revealed was, first of all, I had put my faith in destiny, not in God. And God showed me, say, hey, buddy, the things like this that you hold, that you idolize, or that you put ahead of me in some way, those things can be gone, bro. They're gone. They can just be not there anymore for you. And so that was and I'm not saying God took anything from me. I'm saying life happens. And where my trust was, where my hope was in this kind of, I was going to get this position, I was going to do this thing, and then life was going to be great. I'd be at the camp that I'd been with so long, and it meant so much. I met my wife there, like it was everything. And then it was gone.
Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the show today. Thanks for making this podcast today a part of your day, wherever you are and wherever this finds you. Thank you so, so much for tuning in and jumping on today. Jumping into a great conversation with my friend Paul Turner, talking about youth ministry kind of across the ages and stages of life. And so whether you're just getting started in this or you've been doing this a long time, much to learn here, some things that come with wisdom down the line, some things to be looking out for if you're not yet there. And if you're further along in this journey, maybe some things you can relate to and process as well. So appreciative of Paul to jump in, excited about this topic, excited for us to hear about it, especially as it relates to longevity. Because if you're going to experience longevity, if you're going to do this for a long time, the things that we talk about in this episode today are things you're going to experience, need to know about, need to know how to navigate. And if you can do that, then you really have a chance to stay in this for a really long time and be incredibly effective over the longer haul of your ministry. So make sure you're subscribed to the show, that you're following wherever you are. If you're not on the mailing list, head over to thelongerhaul.com, jump on the mailing list as well. Some emails that will come your way that are kind of aside from even podcast content, but letting you know when new episodes drop as well. So make sure you do that. All that can be at thelongerhaul.com, as well as the show notes for today's episode, which will be there at thelongerhaul.com/episode 152. That's thelongerhaul.com/episode 152. So let's jump in here to today's interview with my friend, Paul Turner.
Welcome to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast,
helping you survive and thrive in youth ministry. And now, here's your host, Jody Livingston.
Well, hey, Paul, thanks for carving out some time here to jump on today. We did a show. I was on your show not too long ago, talking about the book. And I remember we were talking like, man, look at us, just two old guys talking about youth ministry. And said, hey, you should come on my show. Yeah. And let's talk about what it looks like to do ministry when you're old.
Yes.
And so to be fair, we had to record this kind of midday because we had to get ahead of our bedtimes.
Correct. In fact, I took a nap before I got on here. Right.
That's great. That's great. So no, I'm grateful for our time, for you to give the time, for us to have some time to talk through this aspect, this topic specifically. For folks listening who don't know you and aren't familiar with you, maybe just take a minute here, introduce yourself, a little bit of who you are, what you are, student ministry-wise, how you relate, and how you ended up here.
Sure. Yeah. I have been a youth pastor now for about 35 years. I'm married for just about as long, but going into 36 years. And I got 3 kids. They're the best. And yeah, I kind of direct, if you want to call me a director of Disciple Project Ministries, which I've been doing now for, it seems like forever, probably 20 years I've had it, 15 to 20 years. And so I write, I do all the things, try to communicate with youth workers through podcasts and YouTube videos and all that kind of good stuff. And and so now I'm currently in a little church. I'm part-time, a little rural church out in the sticks out in Alabama, and I'm enjoying doing ministry there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I tell people all the time that easily the most fruitful season of my ministry, for the first 11 years, I was a part-time youth pastor. And, you kept thinking, one day I'm going to be full-time and it'll be amazing. It'll be all these things. And then I became full-time youth pastor. and it was not quite what I expected. It's been good. I'm grateful to serve in that capacity, but I'm not complaining in that regard. But man, there were things about serving in that part-time bivocational role that made me better and more effective. And there were things I could do that I just can't do anymore, and I miss deeply. And
like lock-ins.
No, not so much
No.
those. No, I don't know if you've. Yeah, people who listen, they know I don't like those. I used to love them.
Right.
Yes, and they're still, I'm sure, amazing for others.
Yes.
But
yes.
just not for me. Just not for me. So let's talk about this then. You and I have done this a while. You've done it longer than me. I could have been in your youth group. I always like to say that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I don't get to say that to many people, and so when I can, I like to say it.
Right.
When you think of doing ministry this long, right?
Yeah.
And from where you started to where you are now, what are the things that? And I don't mean what's changed in culture, because we could be here forever. When you think of what's changed in you and how you are as a student pastor, like what are some of the things that come to the top?
Oh, wow. Probably a lot of brokenness. Probably a lot of seasons and times where Jesus tells, Jesus says, you can either the rock will fall upon you and you'll be broken, or you'll fall. I mean, you can fall upon the rock and be broken, or the rock can fall upon you and be crushed. And I know there's a lot of times that I was crushed because I was probably just you look in the younger years where I'm just fighting hell with a water pistol, and going after it. And then, there were times where I thought, well, I'm going to change this church. I'm going to change it. And so I spent a lot of time being crushed by the rocks. And so there's a lot of brokenness. There's a lot of self-discovery. You go, wow, yeah, I'm not any of that. I am. It is a journey of surrender. I throw surrender in there, where you just have to, live that broken life all the time, because there are things that are going to, they say, the more things change, the more things remain the same. And it didn't matter what church I was in. It didn't matter. I always say that listen, you can change churches, but the same people go there.
Different name.
Listen, different name, different faces, but they are an archetype. And so these archetypes follow you. And so that was a blessing to know that in that regard. I wish I had known that earlier, that you think if you're going to change churches, things are going to change per se. But I had to adjust, I'll tell you a good example of this is that when I went to camp this summer, the person I prayed for most was myself. I didn't pray for the campers I prayed for them, but I prayed for me the most, because I understood that if anybody's going to mess this up, it's me. I'm going to mess it up because I'm going to say something I don't want to say. I'm going to do something I don't want to do. I'm going to be caught in a moment. And I said, Lord, you've got to help me, be patient. You got to help me, draw back words that, I would be anxious to say. Cause I tell people too, that sometimes 24-year-old Paul or 22-year-old Paul likes to interrupt me sometimes. And suddenly 24-year-old Paul wants to interrupt and jump in there. And I'm like, oh, no. I've seen you. I know you. I know what you did. I know what you're up to. And, there's, like you said, there's things you can't do that you had done your whole time. Like I remember, this is a rule at camp, right? You don't, you don't rat tail kids. You can't do it. I mean, they warn you at camp, don't do that. And then one day a kid came up and was rat-tailing me a little bit, my 22-year-old Paul said, oh, we're going to do that when you're doing it incorrectly. Let 22-year-old Paul show you how this is done. And then I, wound up just, lighting this kid up. And by the way, this was like 2 summers ago. This is not like, this is like, I have to say, oh, no. And then I get back and the kid's got like welts on his legs. And of course I'm getting a call from mom and all that. And I'm like, dadgummit, 22-year-old Paul, look what you've done to me. Look what you did to me again. So I pray for me. above all things, I go, Lord, you know me. I said, please don't let 22-year-old Paul come out. He needs to
Yeah.
stay. He needs to stay where he in the past. Let new Paul come and be a part of this year. And I tell you what, it was the greatest week of camp this past
Mm-hmm.
year that maybe I've had in a long, long time. Just because I was just trusting the Lord a lot more, for that. So I would say that from the beginning to now, a lot of brokenness, a lot of surrender, a lot of conforming, a lot of understanding that I'm being conformed to his image, and I have to be willing to take all the bruises and all the bumps and all the things to get there. A lot of self-denial, a lot of take up
Yeah.
your cross, a lot of, all these things that I believe in as discipleship, that my discipleship self-discipleship has increased in that way.
Yeah. So here's what I'd like to do, and we'll try this. I don't know if this
Okay.
would work.
Okay.
I'd like to go kind of decade by decade
Sure.
and give advice, speak to characteristics that we think were present in that season,
Mm-hmm.
and advice to maybe our former selves and those listening who are in that season. Does that make sense? So like
Sure. Mm-hmm.
20s, 30s, 40s, that's where I jump
Right.
off, but you can
Right.
keep going.
Sure. Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. And just kind of what that looked like, what we
Yep.
wish we had known, what advice we would give, what were the
Yep.
characteristics of that. How old were you when you started?
22.
Okay, so you were 22. I was 18. We'll skip the teens because no one should be a youth pastor at 18. We can all agree on that, including my first youth group. And so we'll start in 20s. Now,
Yes.
I'll tell you in my 20s, I was dangerous. I was on fire, excited, arrogant. I knew better than most. I knew if people would just get out of my way, I could fix it. Parents were the enemy. I had unlimited energy, no money, and I was just really, really excited. Coupled with a reality that I didn't want to admit to anyone is that I knew I didn't know what I was doing. And so there was this fear in the back that I would be found out as well that I think was there. And so I was smart enough to lean in and read others who were ahead of me. I don't think I would do that now because I think if you wanted to learn then you had to read, stuff. But I was reckless. Some of the things I said and did, I look back and I go, holy cow, why did they not fire me for that?
Right.
What about you? Would you agree with that? Where you just talked about, a little about what 24-year-old Paul was like.
Yeah. I would agree. I would say this, where you didn't know anything, I knew everything.
Yeah. Well, I thought I knew, I thought I knew.
I thought I was hot stuff because I had gone, it doesn't matter that I spent a year of discipleship training at a school in Phoenix, Arizona. Big church, 10,000 person church, when 10,000 person churches were, slowly on the rise there, early 90s. And it'd be like today spending a week at Stephen Furtick's church, learning for an entire year. So for me, I was like, oh, I am fresh out of this, man. I said, let's go. And I thought I knew a lot of things. So I would say I would agree with that, but my arrogance was at a super high, super high level, to where I didn't want people telling me about. Don't tell me how to do my job. I know how to do my job.
Oh no, I didn't listen to any advice I was given at all. And if people questioned what I did, I just doubled down, and it made me mad. If I thought it sounded fun, we did it, and that was about the end of my thought process.
Yeah,
there was no wisdom.
Well, sure. It was better to ask for the phrase is better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So I never asked for permission to do anything really. I'm just going to do that.
No, I lived and died by that,
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that's common or that was just us?
I think it's more common because I think it's just the age. And it doesn't matter whether you could just come out of 4 years of college or I think there's a certain amount of proving yourself that you want to do at that age.
That's good.
And I think we all want to do that. We all want to say, hey, I can watch me do this. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of it. I wouldn't say it's always standard, but I think it has levels and dimensions of it based on personality of what that looks like.
So what advice would you give to someone listening who finds themselves, and look, I think if we really wanted to be fair, I think you could even take 20s and kind of divide those, like early 20s, late
Mm-hmm.
20s.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get that. So if you're sitting here and you're 27, 28, you're probably not as reckless as you would be if you were early 20s. And by no means are we bashing you or saying that you can't do
Nope.
this or that you
That's right.
shouldn't do this. I think you
Mm-hmm.
you should be doing it if it's what God's called you to. You have energy I still wish I had. You know, there's things in that season I did really, really well that I don't do as well now, to be
Yeah.
fair as well. It's not like everything is suddenly amazing. But what advice would you give to kind of those in their 20s who are listening?
Man, I'd say ask more questions. Ask more
Hmm.
questions. Don't know everything. And I'd say this, not everybody's your enemy. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody is not your enemy. Your pastor's not your enemy. The parents are not the enemy. Your students are not the enemy. You know, everybody's not trying to thwart your plan, whatever your plan is. Okay. Whatever your
Yeah.
vision is. Everybody's not trying to thwart it. They are trying to understand it. And so
Mm.
you have to do a better job of speaking to me, Paul, do a better job of explaining exactly what you're trying to do, so that you won't get that paranoia feeling
Yeah.
all the time that people are trying to mess with your stuff.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I'd say be patient. You know, I don't think 20s Jody was patient at all. He's still not great at that, but he was definitely not good at that at that season. I wanted it all and I wanted it now. And I don't necessarily mean like, I don't think I was striving for like bigger, better. The comparison game is strong in your 20s. I think especially now because you see so many, you know, with social media and all the things of what others are doing and have. But I wasn't trying to necessarily grow bigger, you know, or anything like that at the time. I wanted to be effective, and I wanted to be effective right then. And I wanted to reach all the kids and do all the things and, you know, all of that. So
Yep.
I think I would say patience. I tell 20 somethings all the time, read more, just read. And if you don't like to read, welcome. We've been waiting for you. Not everyone does. I would say most people don't enjoy reading, but if you want to learn, like I was on the Youth Ministry Booster podcast. I just did a interview for them, and I think it's coming out in a few weeks. But one of the things that I talked about there, and I think I talk about this in my book even, is like somebody listening in their 20s, if they said, man, I just want to grab lunch with Paul or lunch with Jody, and we're there for an hour, I could tell you some stuff. But I spent a few years writing a book that I spent a lot of time thinking through, you know, how am I going to communicate this? What's really essential? What's necessary? I could not give you all of that over lunch or
Mm-hmm.
over weeks of lunch, but you can sit and read a book that anybody wrote and you gain not just hours, but years of wisdom as you lean in and do that. And so developing the discipline of reading is something I think that has really been lost. And I just think it short circuits a bit
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
what we can learn.
And you don't have to read everything. You don't have to agree with everything. You could read books
No.
that you disagree with and learn
Yes.
something from that. You don't have to collect, all your favorite authors, maybe that are going to tell
Yep.
you everything you want to hear or everything you want to, whatever it is. But you're spot on as far as, hey,
Yeah.
read the whole story.
You would be wise to read things that aren't just in the echo chamber of your own conviction, you know, for the sake of understanding and learning and those things.
Yep.
I think too, I'll say this too, you don't feel the pressure to finish something you start. It's the author's job, right? I felt that responsibility as I was writing. It's my job to keep you engaged in reading and convey this to you.
Yep.
If I'm failing at that, that's not on you. That's on me. Go read something else, you know?
Right.
So anyway, I'll get on that soapbox quick. Okay. So 20s, I feel like that's good. 30s are different than 20s.
They are.
How do you feel your 30s were different from your 20s?
My 30s were different than my 20s. Well, I'd been married at that point, and of course this, mileage may vary because if you're
Yeah.
young and unmarried, or you're starting your 20s and you're not married until you're 27 or 28, it was probably a lot better for me because I had another person in my life who could tell me something. And
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
even know if I listened to that very much at that point, but it's another dynamic. At least it was another. I had to get through another barricade to get to the stupid thing I wanted to do. I'd have to run over another. I'd have to run over another barricade that was put in front of me, which I'm thankful, by the way,
I
Kim
love it.
Turner. I'm
Yeah.
thankful, Kim Turner, for all those barricades that you said.
I
You
love
sure
it.
you sure you want to do that? So having that extra person in my 30s was certainly helpful. But I also think, and everybody's trajectory is different. For me, it was really figuring out. It was like, okay, so by that point, I had been in probably two or three, I can't remember, two or three churches by that point, probably by mid 30s. And I thought, okay, you know, how am I going to navigate this? Because I started to think, when is it going to pop? When can I find, for me, it was like finding my place, right?
Mm,
Not everybody finds their place in the first couple of churches, maybe. You're still feeling out systems. You're still trying to figure out those things. And so for me, I'd say in my 30s, if I was, giving advice to myself in my 30s, I would probably use the word patience at that point. I think,
okay.
it's hard to teach somebody how to swim unless they're drowning sometimes. And so I
Mm,
probably found myself in a drowning place where I was far more open to to instruction, um, to prayer, to really digging in, to kind of figuring out who I was and who I wanted to be, what kind of youth pastor I wanted to be, what kind of pastor I wanted to be, what kind of believer I wanted to be, and you also have by that point suffered enough slings and arrows at that point as well, so you're
yeah. Yeah.
carrying some things. You're disillusioned. I would probably use that word. There was a lot of disillusionment. There was a
Yeah.
lot of, like, what am I doing again? Why am I doing
Mm,
this? And so that whole, for me, I would just have to tell, 30-year-old Paul, between 30 and 35, probably say, buddy, just hang on. And what maybe changed some of that. I remember I was working at a camp. I wasn't working at a church at the time. I was there and I was there full time. And I read the book Crucified by Christians
mm,
and by Gene Edwards. And I remember that changing my whole mindset. I was like, oh, this is what it means. Like, oh, religious people got a hold of Jesus and did some
yeah.
terrible things. I was like, oh, so then my world just started to like shift a little bit to where like, oh, I have to remember this is part of the deal. This is
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
No easy pathways here, brother. I said, and at that point too, I really was thinking about not going back to the church. I was like, well, what am I going to do? I'll work at camp the rest of my life until my wife said, and once again, my wife said, we were living in Florida and she's from Alabama, and her church's youth pastorate had opened. And I said, baby, I don't want to do it. But I said, because you asked me to do it, I'm going to do it. Okay. Because I know you want to be near your parents. I know we have kids now and you want the grandparents involved. I said, I'll do it. I said, I probably won't get it. I said, but I'll do it. Well, lo and behold, I wound up going and applying. This is the early days of the internet and everything else,
Yeah.
right? So I go and we figure it out. And my wife is there. I think she's there just like clicking all the time to see if things have gone through. She's wondering, what is,
That's funny.
what is
I love it.
happening. And so eventually we got to that, and eventually I got, you know, I got a job, doing that. So, but yeah, I would say that I probably was working through that disillusion phase for me. I would say,
Mm,
Paul, you have to open your eyes, buddy, that what is really happening here is you are once again in that conforming stage. That everything you're going through at this point is trying to get rid of all that stuff that you
yeah.
have built up that you need to get rid of again.
Mm,
And that's a process that I feel like I've just gone over and over again.
yeah. So I got married really young. I was almost 20. My wife had just turned 20. We had our first kid at 22. By the time I hit 30, I'd been married 10 years and had 4 kids. Like, so I was a little ahead of the game on that front. But I'll tell you what I remember, and I was pumped to turn 30. Everybody thought I was crazy. Seems to be a pattern in my life. I was really excited to turn 30 because I felt like in my 20s, everyone still saw me as a kid, even though I had kids. And in some cases, you know, like I had been married just as long as others. But I was younger, right? So it didn't matter. I literally remember feeling like I went to bed 29, woke up 30, and people saw me as an adult for the first time. I was no longer the kid taking care of the youth. I was like an adult. I was doing the same trips. I was doing the same retreats. I was doing the same thing that I did a week before. But it felt like people now saw me differently because I was in my 30s. And that gave me confidence that I did not know I needed, and not arrogance. Like in my 20s, I mean confidence of like, oh, people really trust me. I can do this. And I feel like that was a catalyst for growth in me in my 30s as a student pastor, husband, father, all the things. I was still learning a ton. And I think by my 30s, I had realized some of my arrogance that I had not noticed in my 20s. And I was really beginning to lean in and learn and kind of figure out more of who I was. To your point, like, oh, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm not good at. This is what I enjoy. This is what I don't enjoy. These are my strengths and weaknesses. And here's how I get better at this. And it was a good season for me. It was a good season. And then my kids started getting older. And that brought a challenge outside of the age. That was more a phase of life. You know, my kids they were still the mascot of the student ministry, but they were getting older. And so what does that look like to now juggle that responsibility? And that's another podcast for another day, but it was a layer to my 30s for me, for sure. 40s, which I am currently 44. I will turn 45 in a couple months. So just a babe.
Just a kid.
Just a babe. I'm curious to see what you would say about your 40s. And then I'll tell you what my 40s have been like.
My 40s, I felt like, well, it was always hard. I think we have to understand too that ministry is always hard. If you're going for something, it's never going to be easy for you. It's just not. It's not built that way. You're in a system that doesn't necessarily work with you. You have to conform to the system. Or be cast out to some degree. And so by the early 40s, I was probably thinking that I have reached a certain level. I have reached a certain level, and I said, okay. And this was super productive because that's when I started Disciple Project Ministries, I think. And I really dialed in on what is the church missing. And I just said discipleship. I said, man, I want to do everything I can to make disciples. So I think that I had an epiphany moment, right? So I said, okay, we're going to dial in. I said, these kids don't come here to hear me speak. These kids come here because they want to be social animals and they want to be with each other. I said, so I got to do something. And so I said, well, let's change it up. And so I started experimenting with new things. I started doing different relational things. I started doing just as much discipleship as I could. I remember we canceled our youth meeting for 3 months so we could go out and do Jesus stuff. And so we did. That's where the Disciple Project came from. I just said, look, at the end of every month, we're going to have an outreach, but all the 3 weeks, like it almost inverted pyramid down into say, okay, we're going to do every week. We're going to pray for our friends for these 3 weeks. We're going to pray for our friends. We're going to go out and visit the sick in our church. We're going to go pray for them at their homes. We're going to go and visit friends that we've not visited, and we're going to invite them to church to the outreach at the end of the month. We're going to do, and everybody was in a team and that kind of thing. So we had all that going on. And so I did that for 3 months and really just experimented. I really felt if I could title it anything, I'd say it was an experimentation phase. I said, okay, the church hasn't killed me yet. So I'm going to experiment. I'm going to do some things that I think are right and true. I'm going to get permission, by the way, to do these things. I'm not
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
days of doing things going rogue. I said, well, those
Yeah.
are over. I said, let's not do that. I said, we'll destroy everything. I would say it was a sweet spot for experimentation, for
Yeah.
exploration, for finding my voice when I write, the
Hmm.
things that I'm even doing now are informed by those years that where I got to explore and I got to do some other things. So I would say that those years were good because I had two good runs. I had from probably late 30s to maybe early 40s, mid 40s. I think I was in a church. I was 5 years at one church and I was 8 years at another. And both of those churches one was my wife's church,
Yeah.
and then I served. I think I served a year in between. I had a gap. I had a gap
Yeah.
year, as some youth pastors do, because nobody wants to hire you. But
Yeah.
because now you're older,
Right.
it's like
Right.
I still have to introduce myself. Say hi, I'm Paul. I'm the youth pastor because I know
Yeah.
people think, oh, this must be the pastor.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry,
No,
you're
no.
you're
Yeah.
incorrect. And so yeah, so 40s for me was a good time of finding voice, was reflecting on all that I'd been through, and was a sweet spot for creativity and for trying new things.
Yeah. So my 40s thus far have been, I would say, similar in some ways. What I'm going to say is going to feel like a contradiction. And so I'm
Mhm.
going to try to articulate this in the best way that makes sense to me. And maybe you can help me navigate it. Obviously, I feel like in many ways I am in my prime because I've learned a lot of the lessons from the past that I needed to learn. I've kind of cemented. I don't worry about, okay, what am I good at anymore? Or how do I, like, I have systems and processes I've figured out and built, rhythms to my week, to my sermon preparation, to, like, I don't stress out over pitching or recruiting volunteers. I love being in parent meetings. That's something that 20 something Jody didn't want to have, didn't see the need for, right? Like, those things are good. Obviously, I've written the book here in my 40s. So I've found kind of some of that you're
Yep.
talking about. So all those things have been good. However, it's probably been one of the more difficult seasons of ministry for me personally, because I have found myself feeling like I'm starting to look more in my rear view mirror than my windshield.
Mm.
And that has caught me by such surprise. I was not expecting it. And I feel like it has brought with it a new kind of insecurity at times. Am I too old for this? Can I still do this? Am I really good at these things that I think I'm really good at? There's been a whole lot of that. What have I done, with my life, and what is counting? And I'm thinking more of legacy than I ever have. And those kind of things. And so that's kind of been, I found an amazing book by Paul Tripp called Lost in the Middle, Grace in the Midlife, which has been the most helpful book that I think I've read outside of the Bible, and the most difficult book to read. It took me forever to read that book. I just felt like every page he was in my head. Like, bro, what do you do? How do you know that about me? Like, he's putting words to things I'm just trying to feel and navigate. It was such a good, helpful read. I felt there have been times here in this season where I just feel a bit lost, is the way I would put it. And yet not confused. I'm not doubting my calling. It's not necessarily so much ministry related as more personal.
Yeah.
That I feel like I'm learning deeper things about who I am than I thought I needed to learn still. It's been a very revealing season in good ways, but very, very painful at times as
Yeah.
well. My understanding is that we'll turn a corner in my 50s, and I'll stop caring as much about what people think, and I'll be more gracious and kind.
Can confirm.
Yeah, and confident. I work through the rest of my insecurities here in this season, and in my 50s, I'll be, more patient and gentle.
Mm.
So I don't know if that makes sense when I talk about my 40s, but that's kind of how
It
I felt
does.
to this point,
It does.
And no one told me that was going to happen. And,
Yeah.
and so initially I'm like, am I nuts? Like, am I the only one who like, and then you start talking to others and you're like, oh, no. No one just talks about it because no one knows how to. So I was so relieved to find Paul Tripp's book, because I just didn't know of another like it. And
Yeah. There's
and it's not like,
I was going to say Bob Buford wrote a book called Halftime.
okay, I'm gonna write that. I'll put a link to that too.
Yeah.
And I'm not meaning like midlife crisis. Like I went and bought a sports car. I've had a
Right.
Volkswagen for a very long time.
Sure.
The owning a vintage Volkswagen is not the same as owning a sports car. It's a sanctifying ownership. It will teach you all kinds of patience and
Oh,
grace.
yeah. Yeah.
And so it's not the same
Okay.
at all. Just so we're clear on that one. Okay, so that's where I jump off the train. Now, in your 50s,
yes.
what has that been? How's that been different?
Okay. So here's where more of what's happening in my 50s is what's happened in your 40s to a degree.
Okay.
Because I had enough hubris to believe I could keep going, right? So by the time I was 50, I was like, I got this, right? It's like, we're okay. Right. So I said, we keep going. But then I had some things revealed, I feel like, in my life, that I had this thing, and I probably had it for a long time, that I probably thought I had this thing called destiny, that I have a destiny. And I thought, and then something happened that broke me hard. So the camp I got saved at, the camp that I worked at, the camp that I spoke at for 20 years, vanished. And I was on a short list. This was going to be my retirement, really. This was going to be what I was going to do. And I was on a short list to be, potentially camp director. And I would, and then it was gone. I mean, you're about 50 years, a 50-year-old camp, 50-year plus camp, gone because the board decided to sell it. So it didn't matter my relationship with the camp director. And by the way, I found out about that on Facebook.
Yeah.
Didn't get a phone call. Didn't know, no heads up. And so that thing that I thought, excuse me, was going to somehow rescue me, right? I had this plan. I had it all planned out. This is going to be the destiny. And then I had that moment and I went, so the thing is, like I said, and God and I had some conversations that were like, so ultimately, I think what was revealed was first of all, I had put my faith in destiny, not in God. And God showed me, say, hey, buddy, the things like this that you hold, that you idolize, or that you put ahead of me in some way, those things can be gone, bro. They're gone. They can just be not there anymore for you. And so that was and I'm not saying God took anything from me. I'm saying life happens.
Yeah.
And where my trust was, where my hope was in this kind of, I was going to get this position, I was going to do this thing, and then life was going to be great. I'd be at the camp that I'd been with so long, and it meant so much. I met my wife there, like it was everything.
Yeah.
And then it was gone. And so another thing that was then revealed after that was entitlement. And so you reach a certain point too, I think, and not everybody feels this, I'll say for me, that you start looking at all the work you've done. You've looked at the body of work.
Yep.
You look at the body of work you've done and you go, really? Is this how, I mean, I was going to share a story. I can't share the story, but the thing is that you have these moments where you just think, this is how it's all going to end.
Yeah.
Really? Is this how it's going to end? Is this how the story ends? And I just thought, what an entitled view I had. Like, who are you, Paul, You're reading from a book where just about everybody died in it for
Yeah.
for the faith. Who are you to not lose something or experience
Yeah.
loss or get a disease or any of those
Mm.
things? And there's this thing that God was teaching me. I said, buddy, you've got to realign yourself because this entitlement thing is going to sink you. You can
Mm.
slip very much into bitterness, into hopelessness, into despair. And those things are real things. They'll creep up on you.
Yeah.
It'll hit me at a certain moment where I have to then realign. I have to catch myself and go, oh no, 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 no. We're not going to
Yeah.
spiral today. We're not today, Satan.
Yeah.
We're not going to go down the spiral thing into
Good.
the hole where you're just going to sit there and do nothing all day. So for me, if I was giving advice to my early 50-year-old self, because now for the audience here, I am pushing towards 60. I'm 57. I don't mind saying that. I still, I have to look at those years that these past 6 years, 7 years have been really difficult to deal with that because
Mm.
I have to then say, okay, then where is my hope?
Yeah.
In whom have I put my hope? And anything can happen in those years. These are called. I heard somebody. I think it was uh, Bill, the comedian Bill Burr, or he said these are called the drop dead years. And I think if we've discovered anything of our my Gen X generation here, last week, we lost Malcolm Jamal Warner, we lost Ozzy Osbourne, we lost Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
We lost these people, and then all us other Gen X guys are looking at each other going, like,
Wait a
who's
minute.
next?
Yeah.
And like all these guys, like some of them died in their sleep,
Yeah.
which has killed my nap time. It's just
Yeah.
killed it. I have to say special prayers before I go take a nap. Now, Lord, if you don't
Oh
need me,
gosh.
there's no need to take me. I'm feeling pretty good today. So
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
leave nap time alone. Okay.
Right.
Let's have a nice sleep. So to go back to it, I just say, look, when you reach that point, you got to be careful that regardless of your body of work, and let me tell you what, I have quoted it to God.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
quoted, I've read my
Yeah.
resume to God. I said, by the way, God,
Yeah.
have you seen what I've done? And God's like, oh, not this again. No, please don't read it again, Paul. Right? I got to
Yeah.
talk about all these things. And what was that for? And so these, have these
Yeah.
conversations. And so I think you do reach for me, I just say, hey, Paul, relax. Whatever destiny, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And God's going to be with you
Yeah.
during those phases, whatever you're in. And the more I have to this day, the more I've released to the Lord, the more of myself that I said, you know what? I am a leaf on the wind to some degree, and quit forcing my hand as to what I think I should be doing at a certain age, at a certain time, making a
Yeah.
certain amount of money or whatever
Yeah.
that is. I've just had to discount that. I've just had to
Mm.
realign my faith in the Lord and just say, okay, all right, well, here we go. Whatever's
Yeah.
next, let's go, Lord.
I'm going to ask you a very unfair question, and
Please.
I'm confident that I know how you're going to answer it, but it's worth asking.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you are still effective as a youth pastor
Yes,
at 57?
absolutely. And it's not because I play the best games, and it's not because I think my communication's gotten better. I think I am better at it because they say better, it's a relative word, but I think I'm still functional.
Yeah.
Trust me, there's plenty of times I've wanted to quit and say, this is just, I'll go bag groceries,
Yeah.
whatever, just like every youth pastor does. I'll just go
Yeah.
bag
Yeah.
groceries. I'll wait tables. I'll go, nothing. And look, I still think I'm good at it because I think I listen to the students, right? So the students would let me know in no uncertain
Yeah.
terms whether I was good at my job or not. Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so I'll tell you this, and this has been a crucible. Here I am, right? Once again, I have to measure my sadly, I measure my resume by where I'm at, and that's not a good idea. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't count all those things. And I think I'm better because what the church I'm in now, it's a small rural church, and what the Lord is showing me now, He couldn't have showed me in my 20s. He couldn't have shown me in my 30s.
Mm.
He couldn't have shown me in my 40s. He couldn't even have showed me in my early 50s. But He's showing me now. And that goes
Yeah.
back to my illustrations. It's tough to teach a guy how to swim until he's drowning.
Yeah.
And I think I drowned a whole lot. And the Lord said, "Oh, would you like a life preserver? Because I have one of those." "Oh, yes, please. Yes, I'd like one." And I think at this point, the Lord's showing me, that I've been tried to be faithful with the 7 to 8 students that have shown up
Yeah.
every week. Well, I say every week, but one, every week, uh, and just said, hey, they're going to show up because they want to learn or they want to be together or they're in the mix. And so I think just the Lord has shown me, it's really not even about my skill level. It's not even about that. It's really just my desire to minister to these kids and love them in a
Yeah.
church that's sometimes just not. It can be difficult, as a lot of small churches are, rural
Yeah.
churches especially. So, I think
Mm.
that's just the Lord's just teaching me how to swim again and say, okay, this is how you navigate. This is how you
Yeah.
navigate this. This is how here's how you're going to get through it.
Yeah. And I imagine you're measuring a different metric than you
Oh,
did in
no
your
question.
20s, right? So
No
I,
question.
I, I, I tell people often, I feel like, yeah, I am more effective now than I ever have been. And part of that is time in, like I don't have to. And here's what I've realized and learned. And I think this is a struggle for some churches. I realized I don't have to know all of the latest trends and
Mm-mm.
slang and music. And, it's wise of me to be aware of that for sure,
Mm.
but I don't have to know it. They don't want that. They just want authentic.
Right.
And if I can just show up, love them well, love parents well, lead faithfully, model my faith to them, and do that consistently over and over and over and over and over and just keep showing up.
Yep.
Man, there's so much value in that. And I'm just at a place where I love that. Like I love that.
Yeah. It's simple for me. Show up and do your job. You don't have to be fancy. You don't have to, impress anybody because I'm not
Yeah.
impressive. Good luck with that. But man, if I show up every week and deliver them God's word in a way that's by the way, far more conversational than it's ever been, right?
Mm,
Versus a stage and an audience. These
yeah.
kids are an audience. They're engaged. They're like
Right.
questions and we throw questions out and all that stuff. So it's a different type of dynamic.
Yeah.
So I think if I just show up and do my job, do your job,
Mm,
Paul, today. You only have to do today. Just don't worry about being fancy. Don't worry about
yeah.
impressing people. Just show up and do what you've done all your life, and don't worry about stuff. Just show up
Yeah.
and just love kids and tell them you love them every week, and that if they need you, I'm here.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Paul, if folks want to connect with you beyond this, what's the easiest way for them to find you?
I think if they would like to hear, well, it depends. If they would like to hear from me on a weekly basis, well, they could always sign up for my newsletter, which is the Youth Ministry in Motion. That's my podcast. Sorry. My Youth Ministry Roundup. So Youth Ministry Roundup is a weekly newsletter I put out. I encourage youth pastors and I put, videos, articles, all kinds of good stuff in there. And then you can, of course, the podcast and you can find everything through the discipleproject.net. If you just go to thediscipleproject.net, you're going to find, the newsletter, you're going to find the blog, you're going to find the YouTube channel, you'll find all the things.
Okay, cool. I will link to that in the show notes for folks. Man, Paul, I can't thank you enough for giving some time. This has been a fun conversation. We could keep going, but
but we're tired now. We're old. It's time for another nap time.
Gosh, we sound so crotchety. Anyway, hey, thanks again, Paul, for jumping on. I'm sure we'll connect again soon. And again, I'll make sure to link to all those things in the show notes for folks listening. And you should definitely check out what Paul's doing. It's super helpful. It's kingdom work, no doubt. A lot of wisdom coming from him. So thanks again, Paul.
Thanks, buddy.
Well, there you have it. So appreciate Paul's heart for not only student ministry itself, but also for youth ministers and youth pastors. I know that as you're listening, that comes across just as he talks about ministry and talks about youth pastors, youth ministers. Be sure to check out his podcast as well as all the things that he has coming on. Just a ton of wisdom for that guy. Grateful so much for his perspective, his friendship, and the investment he's made in so many over the years, not just in his own context as a youth pastor, but also to others of us who are running with him at this generation. Again, show notes at thelongerhaul.com/episode 152. So make sure you head over there. And if you've not picked up a copy of Staying Power, my new book through Lifeway Students, you can head to thelongerhaul.com/stayingpower and check that out as well. I would appreciate it for you to do so. If you have, I would appreciate so much if you could head to Amazon and Lifeway and Christian Book and write a short review there. It helps me a ton in terms of getting the word out and some social proof for the book. So if you've already bought it, man, thank you so much. Hopefully you're finding it helpful and encouraging. I'd love for you to go and leave a review of that. If not, thelongerhaul.com/stayingpower is where you can check that out. Well, that'll do it for today. Thanks again for jumping in and making this a part of your day today. Hope you found it encouraging and challenging. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast. Before you go, hit that subscribe button to keep these conversations coming. For notes, resources, and to join our community, swing by thelongerhaul.com. Stay encouraged, keep making a difference, and remember, we're in this for the longer haul. Catch you on the next episode.